Okay, the furnace on our 78 Apache Royal camper wasn't working, and so I decided to take the furnace out and see if I could figure out how it worked and maybe repair some parts that were keeping it from going. So I'm going to try to document here what I did and how this furnace works. Okay, so this is the front grate on the furnace here. That comes off, and underneath we have the gas controller. Down here is the combustion chamber. Up here, this bulb back in there is a heat exchanger. And let's see, in the combustion chamber there's a little plate that screws to it, and there are three connectors. First one is the pilot gas jet that comes out of the controller. The second is the thermocouple, that's this copper wire. And the third is the piezo igniter, and it's this black flexible rubber wire that has a piezo on the end of it. The clicker for the piezo is attached to the controller. It's right here. I'm going to push it. You can hear it click, and it obviously sparked inside of there. Okay, first, how to light this thing when it's in the camper. What I've done here is turn the knob to the red knob to pilot, push it in, let it flow long enough for the gas to get there, and then with this button still pushed in, I can't do it when I'm holding the camera, you click the piezo and that pilot will light if everything's working right. There's a little hole in this plate in here that will let you see in and see if there's a blue flame with the pilot going or not. Once that's done, a person sets the thermostat to on. There's a switch down underneath here that goes to on. Then you slide the temperature up until you hear it click. Alright, that's going to send electricity to the furnace, and in 10 or 15 seconds the fan will start running. It takes it that long because there's a thermal relay, and I'll get back to that. Once the fan is running, it will send electricity up to the gas controller, so you can come back here and turn your red knob to on. And then again, I don't know why, but on this furnace it takes maybe 20-30 seconds for that main burner to kick on, and you'll hear it whoosh and start to burn there. At that point you have an operating furnace. It's controlled by the thermostat, and it just runs as a normal house furnace. The pilot will stay on until you turn it off, and so it'll just cycle on and off as the temperature dictates. Okay, now how to get this thing out of the camper. What I found was up here on the front there's a hole right here on this plate, and there was a screw in there, and that held the front of the furnace to the frame of the galley, and that was the only thing that connected it inside. Back here at the back you have the exhaust pipe that vents hot air, and then this square thing here is an intake. And what you see on your camper from the outside is this. And I couldn't figure out how to get the furnace out because this appeared to be sandwiched in between this galvanized piece and the outside stainless piece. It was sandwiched around the body of the camper. Well, what I found was if you push the entire furnace back from the inside, you're going to push this unit out. It comes out away from the body of the camper. Well, you still can't do anything, and what it took me a long time to figure out was this box here is not connected to the exhaust, and so you need to reach in and slide this box in until you expose a couple of rivets that hold this stainless steel grill on. Then you either drill or grind out those rivets, and then this stainless steel plate will come off. And at this point, the whole furnace can slide out the front of the galley, and it's clear. Before you do that, of course, you'll need to disconnect your thermostat, because the thermostat wires run up and connect to the furnace. And you'll need to disconnect your power source through the access door back on the driver's side of the camper. So with those two things disconnected, you can just grab the whole furnace and it'll slide right out. Okay. Power. The 12 volts come in through this connector that you access through the access door. Blue is hot, white is ground or negative. And so the way this works is the blue comes in and it splits at this junction right here. And so part of the electricity comes and connects up to the red and white, the white with the red stripe wire, and that runs inside the furnace. The other part runs from that connector around and comes in to your thermostat. It provides power to your thermostat. So then when you click the thermostat on, you allow the electricity to pass, and then here's your temperature setting on this. You can see that little arm spring. Right now it doesn't touch the contact that's there, so it would not pass electricity through the thermostat. Click right there. Now it passes the electricity through the thermostat. So the electricity, when you have the thermostat set to on and you have this temperature gauge set up high enough that that contact is made, it should pass electricity from the blue wire coming in to the white wire coming out. And that wire comes around and connects up to a white wire that comes out of your furnace. Okay, so you have the white with red, that's your hot wire that goes in. You have the white to white, and that's also a hot wire, but it's coming from your thermostat. And then the third wire coming out of your furnace is the black and white, or white with black stripe, and that connects to the white cable that runs back to your connector, and that runs back to your converter. Okay, now we'll look at the inside of this to see how this thing runs. What we have here, this is the sort of the business side of the furnace. These wires come in from the outside. Here's your black and white wire, that's ground. Here's your white wire, and that's come from the thermostat. And here's your red and white wire, and that's a hot wire. Okay, that red and white wire passes through a little 3-amp circuit breaker here, and then it runs up to this thermal relay. Now when you turn your converter on, the converter is sending 12 volts through the blue wire, connects up to the furnace, runs through this red and white wire, gets to this relay and stops. And it will wait until it gets a signal from this relay. The relay opens, and then it would allow electricity to pass through this relay into the orange wire. The orange wire runs back here and runs your fan. Now the negative, or the return wire for that fan, is black, and it comes up over here to a connector. Alright, so what happens is you turn that thermostat on, it sends a signal that says, okay, it's time to go. And that electricity comes in this white wire here, and it goes to two connectors right here on this relay. Electricity then passes through that relay, and it heats up. And when it heats up, that relay, a spring expands, it closes, and then that allows this electricity to pass through and get to your fan. Now that takes 10 or 15 seconds, and so once you turn your thermostat on, the fan is not going to start immediately. It's going to take 10 or 15 seconds. Then this thing will click, and it'll start passing electricity around to the fan, and when it does that, then the fan starts up. Okay, the other thing the electricity does, coming from the thermostat, one of its jobs is to actuate this relay. The second job is to send a signal to your gas controller up here that opens the valve so the main burner gets gas. And the way that works is the white wire runs down here and it runs to a little switch right here that's called a sail switch. And that's a switch that is only turned on when the fan is blowing, because the air in the fan pushes against this switch, click, and it closes, and then the electricity can pass from the relay down around through the sail switch and then up to the controller. There's also, by the way, right here, an overheat switch. So if your furnace for whatever reason gets too hot, this switch will click open, and that means it'll stop the electricity from running to the sail switch and thus running up to your controller. And so that'll stop the gas. So that's a safety feature. It's set there to protect you from the furnace overheating. Okay, once the fan is running and you're sending electricity through the sail switch and through that overheat switch, it comes up here to the gas controller and it passes through, and that is what opens the valve, pop, and then that allows the main gas, which comes in the top of your furnace, goes into your controller right here. Here's your main pipe down here on the bottom of the controller, and it runs over to your burner in the combustion chamber. Alright. And well, I'll check and see how good this video is, but I think that's it in terms of how the system works. Note that the fan actually has two components. On the one side it has this squirrel cage, and that's what blows air, comes in, comes around, and blows out across the heat exchanger and then out into your camper. There's a little small fan on this side under this cover that actually also blows air. It blows air through this tube here, and it runs up to the combustion chamber, and so it makes sure that your combustion chamber is getting enough air for that gas to burn. And again, that air is sucked in through this intake here. So the furnace is sucking cold air in, blows through, hits the combustion chamber, gets burned with the propane, comes up into the heat exchanger, and then exits through your exhaust here. So if your furnace is not working, one of the first things to do, I think, is to pull this plate on the combustion chamber and verify that the nozzle, that is your pilot jet, is clean and clear. Mine was clogged up and I couldn't get any gas out of it. So until I took that out, I couldn't get the furnace to run. The other thing I found was that mud daubers had gotten in here and here, and they had clogged the combustion chamber, and they had clogged the intake and this fan area, so the fan couldn't run, which is why it kept popping that little 3-amp circuit breaker there. And all that had to be taken apart and cleaned out before I could get the fan to run. And then, so now, I've bench tested it here a couple times. So now it's time to get it back in the camper, and since it's October, this is about the right time to do it.